Welcome to the 4th episode of The Accidental Writer at the Alex Cafe. This is Australia's newest television show on writing. I'm Dick Ross.
And I'm Susan Berg, Dick's co-host.
And author and ultramarathon swimmer. So we've got a power-packed show today, I believe it is. We first start off with speaking to Mick Pacholli about his St Kilda Writers Festival of Writing 2021. And then we cut to Frank Howson, who's a master of all things to do with writing. Theatre, movies, lyrics, you name it, he's done it. And Hamish, our resident poet, is going to interview Thabani who's an extraordinary young man from Zimbabwe, who's now an incredibly successful performance poet in Australia. An inspiring story, that is.
And we're also going to be speaking with Martin Hughs, who is the publishing director and CEO of Affirm Press. So it's going to be quite a show.
And I know it's irrelevant, but Thabani is gorgeous to look at.
Absolutely.
We're all about the writing now.
Michael Pacholli, thank you so much for coming into the Alex Cafe.
My pleasure.
You have a Writers' Festival coming up. Tell us about what it's called and when it's running.
Right, February 14th to the 28th we'd planned it for, but due to COVID, we have to pull it back a bit. So we're reducing the February content to a more promotional, compacted with some live shows, some book releases, some radio interviews.
But are you still doing stuff in February?
Oh, yes, very much so, like Night of Broken Glass, Jack Howard's Ambassador of Love, Meredith Fuller's wonderful piece on family of origins.
So the Night of Broken Glass is about Crystal Nark. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, a lot of people know about it now. The march of William Cooper in 1938, around November 9th, where he marched from Footscray to the German consulate in Melbourne, where he had a letter of protest, the only person in the world apparently, individual, that fronted on behalf of his peoples to protest the Night of Broken Glass that, as we know, started the whole of the Holocaust.
Look, I'm Jewish, so, my ears prick up when I hear about Crystal Nark and, what William Cooper did was extraordinary, given the fact that, Indigenous Australians were not being treated well.
Well, they weren't even considered human beings at the time. They were on our fauna list.
Yeah,
right. So when you think about it that way, it's quite remarkable. And the fact that, even more remarkably, Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, accepted this very petition some 3 or 4 weekends ago in the German Parliament.
Yeah, so this is going to be an event I look forward to.
Thanks.
And an event that's long overdue. William Cooper, a huge Australian, not just a great Australian, an amazing Australian who can show empathy when at the same time his own people are being so poorly treated.
A lot of credit has to go, obviously, to Warren Wills for conceptualising and producing this show and bringing so many people to the table on this. There's hundreds of people involved in the cast, bringing in children's choirs from Pakenham, from all the outskirts of Melbourne.
Now that's great because it will lead to the dissemination of this extraordinary story. The only man in the world who put up his hand around this time.
It's fabulous.
You are one of Victoria's great characters and I think this little taster about St Kilda Writers Week 2021 is super exciting.
Thank you.
And I hate sucking up to you, but it sounds fabbo.
Cool. No worries. It was something we thought we had to do to try and do something around the time of the cancelled festival, St Kilda Festival, just to give something to our international... We were live streaming it all, so we wanted to give something to our international visitors that weren't coming.
Yeah.
But it's proven even more complex by the New South Wales and border closures and all this type of thing. So we thought, bugger it, we'll just do a preview and do the big show.
Nothing's easy now. Well, thanks very much for coming in. It's been great. We'll see you over the next couple of shows.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you both. Thank you, Susan.
Frank, you wear so many hats. You
I do, and I thought I'd wear this
literally,
one. Yes,
literally.
yes.
But an author, a scriptwriter, an actor, a producer,
A director, yes.
The list goes on, Mike.
Yes.
You're a busy man.
You're greedy.
I supplement
Very busy.
I can't keep my mind on one thing. No, but I started out when I was 7 years of age in the theatre, and and by the time I was 21, I'd done like 21 theatrical productions, and I think it's one of those things when you start too young. By the time I got to 21, I was kind of bored with that, and to me it felt more romantic or interesting, and certainly you had much more control over your career if you were behind the scenes, if you were a writer, if you were a director. Then you had some sort of control.
Anyway, let's start with you.
Yes.
So the thing that you're a local boy,
Yes.
and the thing that strikes me about reading your CV is that you were educated, you're a little bit older than me,
Yes.
at CBC St Kilda.
I was.
And CBC St Kilda has had a number of luminous alumni like
Yes.
Eddie.
Yeah, Daryl Summers and I sat next to each other.
Who did?
Daryl Summers.
Daryl Summers, who people might recall was great on a telly. And Morris West, who was a huge international writer with the Devil's Advocate and many other books.
Yes.
But the thing about CBC was that it was so fucking brutal.
It was horror.
Today, it's a fantastic school.
Yes,
And it's amalgamating with the girls' school next door, PCW Windsor. Look, I've got a lot of cruelty stories from graduates from Presentation College Windsor.
Yes,
that was our era.
My father
Don't want to be a dobber.
Hated people who were informed on people. So anyway, she got it out of us that Brother Smallbone, if you did something you didn't like, or you moved your hand some way you didn't like, or you had a smile on your face when he didn't think you should have one, for any reason known only to him, he would grab you by the hair, he would pull you over your desk, then he would grab a sawn-off golf club and hit you on the head with it.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, my mother complained about it, and we found out later he was going through a nervous breakdown, which, I feel sorry for the man, but the thing is he was taking it out on us.
But that's a pretty common narrative that bullies are miserable and suffering in their own right. Always ask myself why it was a reasonably productive house, a hothouse of cultural excellence.
Well, because I have gotten to the age where I realise that every traumatic thing I ever went through in my life, and I've been through many, that at the time I thought was a curse, has actually turned out to be a gift.
It's taught you resilience? Or?
It's taught me to be a better person. It's taught me humility. It's taught me perseverance. And it has certainly really defined my art as a writer and director, because I have seen so much of the human condition in its best and at its worst.
I might just rudely interrupt and say Susan's cultural initiation was through a hideous thing too that happened to her.
Yes.
So that seems to be a path to creativity through suffering.
I actually liken it to, how a pearl is formed. It's formed through irritation, and then you get this beautiful thing out of it.
That's a lovely
And I really
simile.
think that creativity, you show me an artist who hasn't suffered, and I'll show you a phony.
So let's talk a bit about your writing. Share some of that with us.
Let's start with theatre.
Theatre, I said in a program once, in my biography in a play that I was doing, that I was born in a cab on my way to the theatre. Well, my mother was very upset about that. But it feels like I was. And people asked me, did I learn writing? Did I learn directing? And the answer is no. But I've done, as I said before, I've done 21 professional productions for J.C. Williamson's and the Tivoli. I performed at the Tivoli.
Did you? I auditioned for these people, but they never employed me.
Oh, well, they were idiots.
Aren't you nice?
But the thing is, I actually learnt my craft by, when you're working in shows, you go, that doesn't work.
It's all by experience.
Yes, I learned from experience, and I learned from working with directors who were genius, and I learned from working with directors who couldn't direct traffic, and I think you learn from them both.
We call this show The Accidental Writer, and none of us have been trained.
No.
And it probably shows for better or
Well,
worse.
I think sometimes it's good because it means, things are raw and,
well, that's right.
It's not, it just comes out naturally.
That's it. Yeah. And they're the people I'm drawn to all my life. I've been drawn to singers who are not technically brilliant, like Dylan and various other people I could name.
Can't sing a note.
Anthony Newley and people. I always went for the eccentrics, and it's the same with writing and movies. And I love it when I see somebody who does something different. It takes your breath away that it's so bold.
We wanted to bring you back because this show's made in St Kilda.
Yes.
You've recently written a book about St Kilda.
Yes, St Kilda
so
stories.
we want to have a whole conversation about that.
Terrific. We'll be launching that at the St Kilda Writers week.
In a couple of weeks' time. So that's really exciting.
Very good.
And we'll drag you back. It's been lovely.
Excellent. It's been lovely talking to you
thanks
both.
for being so frank, as the name implies, about your tumultuous and traumatic times.
Well, I'm always frank. Frank by name, frank by nature. And I always say, if you don't want the answer, don't ask the question, because I'll tell you. So.
Am I tall and handsome?
Very good, mate. Excellent.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Very good.
Thanks.
Martin, I'm so excited to have you here today to talk to us about publishing. What got you into this whole business?
I studied journalism when I was in school, and then I just sort of floated between jobs. And then I worked at the Big Issue magazine here in Australia, and when I was done with that, I had an idea for a book, kind of merging some of my experiences to date. And the book was called A Slow Guide to Melbourne. And I did it all myself. I wrote it and edited it and organised photographer and design and sold it in and publicised it, this, that and the other. And it went really well. It went so well that another publishing company asked to come on board and co-publish it as a series. And then the series didn't go well at all. But by then I was kind of set up with the infrastructure of a publishing company. And so I did that for a few years part-time while I had another job. And then it was really just kind of doing a few books a year, mostly my own ideas and stuff.
So
and
this is the beginning of Affirm Press?
This is the beginning of Affirm Press. And then 7 years ago, I partnered up with somebody who actually knew what they were doing. Kieran Rogers, my
That's always
partner.
a help.
Absolutely. Partnerships are critical, I recken, for any sort of enterprise. But and I remember he came on board and we decided we'd commit to book publishing full time. And it was a crazy time to start a publishing company, to be honest, because most of the companies were...
They were dying. They were going.
Well, they weren't dying, but they were shedding staff, and they were very worried. They were concerned about this tidal wave of digital technology that was on the horizon. But we thought, they're all tethered to old models. So we kind of try to create a different sort of setup and structure, one that was built for uncertain times. And that's worked really well for us. And I think the best thing that's happened to me personally is, like I say, getting a business partner who knew what he was doing. And so I remember...
Who was that?
Kieran Rogers. He used to be the sales director at Hardy Grant.
Right.
And so he came on board, and I remember the very first day he was with me in the office, he told me one of my ideas was a bit shit. And I thought,
You like that?
He's the guy.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
the guy. And yeah, we've in the 7 years since we've grown pretty phenomenally. We've been the by far the fastest growing publisher in the country.
So you're doing like 70 books a
We're doing about
year
70
now?
books a year now, and working our way up towards doing about 100 books a year.
Starting your own business, of course, is a high risk sort of thing to do, even if
Yeah.
it's not publishing.
Yeah, yeah, it is totally. But I mean, the good thing about book publishing and book creation is that it's a very inexpensive business to get into. So I just started with one book, and that went well. And it was several years. For several years, I was trying to do other books, thinking, "Geez, I should have just stuck with doing a new edition of the one book every couple of years. That probably would have been more enjoyable." But then, like I say, when Kieran came on board, that we kind of completed one another.
So is he the one that chooses what manuscripts?
No, I do that.
You do
yeah,
that.
he's a sales and marketing manager
And
director.
with the manuscripts, how do they come to you? Are people sending them to you? Do you?
Lots of different ways. We get a lot of books from agents, which is my least preferred way of getting books.
Okay.
Because the agents
Very
tend
difficult to get an agent.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because that's exactly right. Don't they say the best way to get a book published is to get an
No,
agent?
agents say that. I wouldn't think if you're somebody who has the wherewithal to contact a publisher or an editor yourself, I generally don't think you need an agent. If we get a manuscript from a reputable agent, we will definitely read it, and
Yeah.
I will definitely make sure that some skilled editor assesses it if I can't myself. And I hope a very encouraging story for aspiring authors will be our very own Pip Williams, who was the author of The Dictionary of Lost Words, which is one of the best-selling novels of 2020. In fact, it's probably the third best-selling novel overall, which is a phenomenal effort for a debut. Pip came to us via the unsolicited submissions.
Right.
So, and now she is a full-time
That must
author
be
and
so exciting.
about to become an international star because her book will be published in huge campaigns in the US and the UK this year.
That's fantastic. But there must be great excitement when something like that comes through unsolicited, that just comes to you and you read it and go, oh,
I'm
this is
tingling.
brilliant.
I'm tingling just thinking about it. It's the most exciting thing about our job.
Yeah.
And
It's sort of like a once-in-a-career opportunity. I've spoken to small publishers before, and they say that they get these once-in-a-career opportunities. Is Pip's yours?
no.
You've had quite a few.
No,
that have-
we've had quite a few breakout books now, which is a big part of the reason why we've been so successful in recent years. But we've also had a lot of success with unsolicited submissions. We do take that more serious than any other publisher I know. For example, another very talented writer, Alice Robinson, wrote a book called The Glad Shout a couple of years ago, and it won the Readings Prize for new fiction. You know, she came to us via the unsolicited submissions. So we've got lots of people who've come to us that way, and it is the most satisfying thing for a publisher because there's no one between you and the author. You know, and
you like that?
Absolutely. The most important thing for us is that our authors have a positive experience with us. You know, whether that means it's positive because they've sold 100,000 copies of the book, or because it's been critically well received, or they've had a fun time doing it. A small book or a big book, it doesn't matter to us. It's very important that the authors have a good experience.
And you build a relationship, though, with your authors. They're not just
Yeah.
a number.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like some publishing houses can just, the authors have felt like numbers, and that's not your.
Yeah, I'm not
way
gonna criticise any other publisher. Genuinely though.
I know, I'm happy to.
Yeah.
You give me the words.
Yeah. No, but I just know that we focus on doing the things that will distinguish us, distinguish Affirm Press, and one of those things is myself and Kieran make time to do the small stuff that other publishing heads maybe can't be bothered with. The golden rule is to write what you know about, and that's obviously leads you to writing a memoir, but any kind of aspiring authors out there, it is really, really difficult, and it could be a fantastic book, and if it doesn't get picked up, it's not a reflection on your lack of skill. It's just that it's going to be too difficult. It's going to be too difficult to sell.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. But like I would just encourage people to identify what's in the market when you're pitching to a publisher. Say it's a bit like this or a bit like that, a bit like something you published before, and demonstrate to them as much as you possibly can how good a collaborator you'll be, how tirelessly you'll work in promotion and publicity of your book. Because honestly, people think that getting published is the be all and end all. That's half the challenge.
Yeah.
Getting the books in stores is one thing. Getting anyone to hear about it is the next. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Good luck with the podcast, the show, and hopefully we'll speak again.
And we'll make beautiful music together.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
Today, I'm going to introduce you to a young Zimbabwean performance poet named Thabani. How are you, Thabani?
Pretty good, Hamish.
Yep.
Happy to be here.
Good. It's been a long time since I've seen you around the traps, but with the pandemic, of course, live public performance has all but disappeared, as it has all around the world. What have you been up to during the last year of lockdown and disruption?
It feels like a whole lot of nothing, but at the same time, so many little projects and kind of just getting my hand into different mediums, because everything shifted to digital, and I'm a lover of Instagram, so it's like, how can we create more content on Instagram? How can we become more accessible to a digital audience? And I guess it also kind of started to reframe the way that I look at productivity, because I feel like at the start of the pandemic I was like, I need to be doing so much more. I'm not writing enough. Now's the time to write my great novel.
Well, when the pandemic started, you had just come off a very busy year of performance in which you took out all 3 major prizes at the Melbourne Spoken Word Prize for 2019. You won the main prize, you won the People's Choice, and you won the Convener's Prize as well, a hat trick, which had never been done before. Plus you won Slam-A-Llama Ding Dong, the Grand Slam, and you just seemed to be
on a roll.
Yeah, on a roll. And then the pandemic hit, as it did everybody, and everything changed overnight, as you said, to digital and online.
Well, I'm working on putting together a poetry collection. So a lot of kind of shorter form pieces that are more intentional and more kind of directed for the page than the stage. Because when I'm doing the 2 different kinds, I always have that intentionality behind it. This is specifically for performance, because my performance style has a level of theatricality.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a distinct difference between stuff that I write for stage and stuff that I write for the page. And it's been really fun to kind of explore, the different elements of form and the structure of the page. Because I had no formal training in poetry.
Right.
And I was actually reading Robert Hass's little book on form.
Oh, that's a great book.
Yeah, and
it's not a little book either. It's a slab of a book.
Yeah.
But it's a book that takes you through just about every conceivable poetic form.
The entire history. And I was just
it's so well
wow,
explained and presented. And the examples he provides are wonderful. It's a book I recommend to any aspiring poet.
Yeah, 100%. It's so good. And just picking and playing with the different forms and being ooh.
Yeah, wonderful
what can I
book.
do with this?
He's just got a new collection out too, just over this summer as well. So I'm eager to read that. I really enjoy Robert Hughs. You've been involved with co-curating the Thin Red Lines with St George.
Yeah.
And also you've got a hot desk fellowship from the Wheeler Centre.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about those 2 initiatives.
Well, I guess the Wheeler Centre, that's probably when I started working on this current collection that I'm doing now, because they give out fellowships for the different kind of writing genres. There's fiction, non-fiction, poetry. So mine was one of the poetry ones. And that's when I started working on the collection that I'm building up towards now. And then within Red Lions that I started with St. George, like what we were thinking at the inception was like, there's all these different places to go and perform your poetry, but we seldom get to see like someone's full catalog and like see what they're playing with, what they're experimenting with. It's like either you go to an open mic where there's like one dedicated feature, or you're going to a slam, but you never get to see like the full range of an artist. So like what we started doing was picking specific artists that like we're in love with, like local artists whose work like nobody's seeing because they don't have a place to showcase it, and just started giving them a space to like do a 20-minute set of like whatever they want. So like we do it every 3 or so months. Great. And we pick 4 feature artists and they each get like a 20-minute set, and that's like the showcase of what they're doing. And it's kind of like an opportunity to show what performance poetry can kind of be outside the contents of like a slam or like an open mic or like a feature set.
So something more in depth that shows the full measure of the art and just what's possible. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming in, Thabani. We are going to show a clip of yours. It's a performance clip that was shot for the Melbourne Spoken Word Annual Festival 2020, which was all done online in the middle of last year. And yeah, we'll have a look at Thabani's clip.
Responsible. It's a possible byproduct of social conditioning, shirking the soft underbelly to protect it. I guess that's why he made me, or maybe I made him. Maybe I'm just a messenger. Don't shoot me for my delivery, languishing in the opportunity to live a little more vividly, be a little more like him. You know, you just can't help but like him. The smile, the stage presence. Isn't he just so disarmingly charming, you know, so talented, you know, such a good writer. No, I'm the good writer, not just the ghost writer. You know, most writers won't let you see this part. Sure, you get to see the art, but never peer behind the veneer of the artist, see that inner seething darkness. I'm not that dark. The tortured artist motif is dated and frankly quite problematic. It just gets under my skin, how I live just under his skin. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be able to perfectly describe the radiance of the sun while never having felt it on your own skin? To live in cold isolation only to be plated on a stage.
Well, I hate to say it, I thought that was a power pack show.
I really enjoyed today. I thought it was great. It was diverse people that we had here talking and sharing their experiences with us. And, you know, who was your favourite guest?
Well, I hate to pick favourites, but I love Frank Howson, author, theatrical director, film, screenplay writer, lyricist, poet, you name it, he's done it. There were several things that emerged from that, and sorry to repeat myself, but I believe in repetition. First of all, he said...
I've heard you say that so many times, like, oh my God.
Because I repeat it. First of all, I was quite confronted by when he said you have to suffer to create. You've suffered to create.
And I wouldn't have been able to create without that suffering. I mean, that was
But I haven't. I've had a pretty blessed life, really. And I've written lots of shit, but... Anyway, so that was a confronting position. Thabani, I thought, what a lovely, amazing story that is about Thabani. And finally, I thought that Martin, our publisher...
I love Martin.
Yeah.
I think he's just fabulous. And
he's a straight talker.
Yeah.
Inspiring, because, you know, the narratives around the printed book and Australian publishing is always gloomy. But he said, nah, it's all bullshit, you know.
But insightful as well. Like, my understanding was that the best way to be able to find a publisher was to have an agent. So I thought that was really interesting that he said, it's not the way to go, that they actually publishers prefer to work directly with the author. So I guess everyone...
That's right, if they're an accommodating author.
Yes.
A collaborative author.
And if they feel that they have work there that is up to the level of being published, then they just need to be brave and submit it.
Yeah, so I actually got quite a lot out of today.
I enjoyed it.
See you later, hope you did too.
We'll see you next time.